The food train is one of a number of organisations across the city that, GCVS members that haven't been able to be funded for this year, this next period, and we understand the council's challenges. There's so much demand on the resources that they have to fund third sector organisations, but I think when you start to recognise that actually some of the services that are being provided, and that food chain example is a great example, these are people that if there isn't a service provided by these voluntary organisations, the council themselves are going to have to step in, and it will end up most likely costing them more to support people who end up requiring social care or requiring more intensive support because they don't get this sort of proactive preventative support in the first place.
Do you think, though, the council will step in?
We really hope so. We've certainly met with councillors this week, and again, we do understand there's limited options that they have, and limited budgets that they have from what they have to do. But I do think that when you look at and you hear from some of the people that you've just heard from there, I think it's clear that something needs to happen. We would certainly like to see some of the organisations that haven't been funded, whether there could be opportunities to resource them in different ways. But if that can't happen, there certainly needs to be something to make sure that the people that they're currently supporting aren't left abandoned.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, the council, we did ask to speak to them. Nobody's available to come onto the programme. However, we have got a statement. They're saying across the board there was a 90% increase in grant funding requested in comparison to the last set of applications. That's a huge increase, isn't it?
Yeah, and that reflects, I think, a number of things. First of all, COVID and the cost of living crisis have certainly laid bare a lot of the inequalities and poverty and disadvantage that exists in the city. And that is much of what these voluntary organisations are trying to respond to. And that need is massive. But alongside that, organisations themselves are seeing costs going up. And there's less money. Without getting into the grand scale politics of it, there is fundamentally going to be less money coming from Westminster to Scotland, and likely less money coming from Scotland, from Holyrood to Glasgow than we need to address some of the challenges that we have.
Do we know if the pot of money Glasgow Council's putting up for these applications has shrunk, or has it remained the same?
It has shrunk. It's shrunk over the last 3 years, and it's shrunk in cash terms. But of course, in real terms, and particularly in the last year, in real terms, it's taken that hit, that inflation hit that everyone's suffered.
It's quite an odd setup, though, isn't it? I mean, you've got this fund which, is for equalities, arts and culture, and supporting communities. So you've got charities like the one, we were just hearing from, giving what some might say a lifeline service, competing with theatres. We heard from the Tron Theatre the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of a number of issues that we've raised with Glasgow City Council, that actually there are some services that are funded through this that you might regard as quasi-statutory, that you might regard as being so close to essential that whether actually it's suitable to fund them through a competitive process like this, or whether there might be better approaches to doing that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for speaking to us. That is Ian Bruce, who's the CEO of the Glasgow Council for Voluntary Organisations.